be. And then, as Ashley said, account for GST here. So put in that 15% right from the beginning, so that you don't have to take a hit when you do actually have to start paying that GST. It's already accounted for. And then something that we did do reasonably early on in our journey with ACFB is get yourself a good accountant. They're really there as an enabler to make sure that you get the best benefit from the tax system. Because yes, they're producing your accounts and they're meeting your obligation to the IRD to lodge your accounts yearly and keeping an eye on things, but really they're there to help you with getting the best from write-offs and deductions. And I'll have a bit more information about those in the next slide. One of the things that Ashley and I put together, which I'll show you here, is our price per session calculation sheet. So this might look a bit daunting numbers wise, but I'll explain the different sections on it.
Can you zoom in a little bit? It's hard to see for us. There we go. Much better. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll explain the different sections we have here. So the section on the top left is a piece about those business startup expenses that I was talking about. So things you might, and the numbers here are all arbitrary. You can fill them in with something. This was just kind of an indicator of average kind of expenses you might expect. And what we've done on this sheet is we've got spaces to be able to add in other things that we haven't considered. So you can put in something you want here and add your own values in, and it's going to sum up a total. And then what this does is if you put in what your session rate is going to be, it will tell you, okay, at that session rate, this is how many hours it would take you to pay back and cover those startup expenses. It's just something to understand, like, oh, how big is my cost to getting going and how quickly am I going to be able to cover that off and be at a point where I've paid back those startup expenses. And then on the right, we have all of your ongoing expenses. So this is all the standard things you're going to have to pay on a weekly, monthly, or yearly basis. So we then come up with an average here of this is how much it costs you to operate your business weekly. So in this case, we're at $400 based on these costs. And then we've set a session rate. We have to take GST away from that to figure out what your real rate is. And then this is what you guys were talking about earlier, is the number of sessions that you are hoping to do per week. So you can be playing around with these numbers here and saying, well, if it's 15, what if I was only to do 10? And it's going to readjust all the numbers and tell you what would your actual take-home rate be per hour after before tax, but after all of your expenses and any administration. So you can get a feel for, like, have you set yourself at a good session rate? Are you going to be happy with what the resulting figure is here before you then have to pay tax on that? So you can then be tuning some of these numbers. So you might say, well, actually, I spend 4 hours a week on administration, and it will adjust the figures. And it will tell you how many sessions at the rate that you've set it'll take you to make sure that you're at least breaking even. And obviously, anything above that, you're starting to make money. And the same with these lists of expenses on the right here. We don't have a full list here, and you may decide there's others that actually I need to add in here. You can add them in, put values in here. So let's say you were going to pay down your startup expenses at $100 a week. It will recalculate everything based on you putting in those figures. So it's really a way of being able to play with some of the numbers and get a feel for what you might set your rate at, and to be able to see somewhere visually, what are all these expenses? What have I got? How much is it actually going to cost me? And we did this because We have obviously want to understand this for ourselves, but we thought it was really useful for others who are starting out to be able to have a way of being able to plug in a few numbers. So the color code here, yellow, means it's a place that you can enter a value or type something. When you get this, everywhere else will be locked down, just because we don't want you to be able to break the formulas and things behind some of this. You just plug in some numbers and then it'll give you kind of an indicator at the end of this. So this is already included in the list of the items that we'll give you after this training, and hopefully it's something that you'll find useful. And definitely open to feedback on this if you think we're really missing things from this, because we'd like it to be as useful as possible.
They actually already have it. It was in the zip file that I sent, or the Google Drive access. Yep. So they do have this.
Awesome. But no, we find this really useful, and I know Ashley uses it to try and get a feel for where things are at with her own private practice. Yeah, go for it, Rachel.
I just want to jump in and say I love this already. Like, I'm a real spreadsheet person, and I really love this. I'm going to have a good play with it. Yeah. I've kind of created my own, but it's nowhere near as detailed as this. So yeah, this is great. Thank you.
Yeah, as I was saying, I'm a numbers geek. Like, it's what I've been doing for my entire career. So I enjoy putting together stuff like this and making useful tools out of it. I've done the same with our own personal budget. I've got it all formulas everywhere and it all kind of figuring stuff out. It just simplifies the process. So no, that's great.
It even translates like US dollar to New Zealand dollar, because I have to send money back home and everything else. He is the numbers whiz. So if you ever need anything like that, you go to him. He'll figure it out.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, so that's probably one. It is an important aspect of getting yourself up and going in private practice, because obviously you have to decide, where do I start with my rate. Plus, obviously, it's not just one rate, because you might be deciding you're going to differ things. You're going to do couples sessions or group sessions or packages and all the rest of it. So you need to have a good idea of, like, am I pitching it at the right level? Is it going to be worthwhile for me?